Grand Forks County is dropping its face mask mandate, and another major city in the valley may do it next. The Grand Forks County health officer says they made the move because COVID numbers are down and vaccination rates are going up. But some people are not too big on the idea. One woman who works at a Grand Forks grocery store tells Valley News Live that she thinks it's disrespectful to the elderly and people with compromised immune systems.
The mask decision lifts the enforcement mechanism but does not diminish the usefulness of masking as a tool to mitigate COVID-19. Grand Forks Mayor Brandon Pachensky says it's important to respect the rights of businesses to implement their own masking policies. Fargo Mayor Tim Mahoney is also indicating that he will allow the city's mask mandate to expire on March 22nd. Minnesota House Republicans are calling on Governor Tim Walz to loosen restrictions on event centers, venues, and other large gatherings and increase attendance at large events, including professional sporting events for the Twins in the Wild.
House GOP leaders have scheduled an 11:30 news conference today to talk about details of their request. They say the change is safe because of falling COVID numbers.
And I do have some breaking news that we just got into our newsroom seconds ago. I was reading it here. The state of Minnesota is now expanding who is eligible for vaccines. They say that they are now moving on to the next 2 phases of Minnesotans who will be able to get their vaccine starting tomorrow. Now that includes people with the underlying health conditions, food processing plant workers, other essential workers, people with disabilities. We'll have more on this as we curate through this information, and that'll be on the VNL News app.
The judge in the Derek Chauvin murder trial says he will continue with jury selection today, unless the appeals court tells him not to. Chauvin is charged with second-degree murder and manslaughter in the death of George Floyd.
Jury selection was delayed yesterday when prosecutors asked the judge to reinstate a lesser charge against Chauvin. Legal experts say reinstating the charge will improve the odds of getting that vaccine, or getting a conviction, excuse me.
It is already in the mid-40s as we start off our Tuesday here. Let's get a check of just how warm we'll get on this Tuesday, March 9th. Good morning, Lisa.
Good morning. Yeah, hard to believe that it is March 9th when we're talking about temperatures as warm as they are, and they have been for the last several days. Yesterday, we of course set the record. We've been keeping an eye on those records here. We broke the record in Fargo at 57 degrees yesterday, and we hit 59 in Grand Forks, breaking the record there. And look at the Tuesday numbers. Both in Fargo and Grand Forks, our record highs are 58 degrees, both set back in 2015, and we are talking about breaking those records yet again today. And here's a look at those temperatures. Beautiful out there this morning with that sunrise in Fargo. And we've got a temperature of 47 degrees in Fargo. And Grand Forks, we're at 42. Some 40s in Thief River Falls and Bemidji. Fergus Falls is at 35 and 41 in Detroit Lake. So very warm, especially when we consider that our average high for this date in Fargo is 32 degrees. And we'll just climb from there. Here's a look at our winds. It's been blustery in Fargo, specifically with some gusts going into the 30s, a 33-mile-per-hour gust out of the southeast, also a gust of 24 in Baudette, and most areas seeing wind speeds into the teens, but those wind gusts will pick up and continue to be an issue for us here today as this system kicks up that wind, stirs up that wind out of the south, and that warmer air rushes into the valley. Most of the precipitation, as you see here, is passing by north of us, but there are some areas where we do have some sprinkles in the northern valley specifically, and that may be an area where you have to, use your windshield wipers a time or two on your way into work here today. You can see they're very light, and they'll continue to move to the north and east. Otherwise, pretty quiet. We've got some mostly clear to partly cloudy skies across the southern valley here this morning. We're more likely to have sunshine in the southern valley today, and temperatures soaring, a high of 64. So out at the bus stop, the kids will want to wear their layers this morning, but this afternoon, that outer layer probably not needed. Heading into your 7-day planner, again, a reminder, Wednesday, tomorrow, a first alert weather day. Later in the day, we're expecting some rain and some snow to develop in the southern valley. Stay tuned for that.
All right, loving the warm temperature we have today, though. Lisa, thank you. The number of COVID-19 vaccine doses coming to North Dakota is growing, and the number of people eligible is as well. Thrifty White Drug, Fargo Cass Public Health, and Grand Forks Public Health yesterday opened appointments to people in the Category 1C.
But what about the local hospitals? Both Sanford and Essentia say they aren't holding vaccine back, but there are just a lot of people to give it to.
In that phase 1B alone for Essentia in North Dakota, we had over 10,000 patients. So that's a lot for us to try to vaccinate when we're only receiving vaccine once every 3 weeks.
Because we don't want to invite more people than we have doses for.
More supply may also mean more demand. With the Johnson & Johnson one-dose vaccine now in the Valley, Sanford Senior Nursing Director says the amount of people wanting the vaccine is even larger.
Both Sanford and Essentia say their allocations should nearly triple starting next week, and they're hopeful that everyone in North Dakota will have the opportunity to get vaccinated by the end of May. So what's next for COVID vaccination distribution in Minnesota? We'll find out later this morning when Governor Tim Walz talks about his next steps. He'll be joined at a morning news conference by State Health Commissioner Jan Malcolm. Meanwhile, the state of Minnesota is also hosting a tour of the Thief River Falls COVID testing site today. Testing at this site runs today through Thursday from noon to 6. Appointments are strongly encouraged, but walk-ins are welcome. People can schedule a test online through Vault Health.
Self-administered COVID tests are becoming mandatory at 11 more Canadian border crossings, including at Pembina, North Dakota. Travelers to Canada are already required to have a negative COVID test taken 72 hours before their trips. But now they also have to take 2 more tests. The first is at the border, supervised by health staff, and the second one is on day 10 of a mandatory 2-week quarantine. North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum is stepping in line today to get his COVID-19 shot. He's getting his first dose this morning at the Bismarck Event Center. Burgum will take part in the Bismarck-Burley Public Health Drive-Through Vaccine Clinic now that vaccinations are being provided for individuals in that priority group Phase 1C. Some families have plans to head out of town for spring break. But what does that mean for when you come back? Can the kids head back to the classroom? Well, the Valley Today's Brian Sherrod, he joins us live with what the 3 major districts in the metro are saying to parents. Good morning, Brian.
And good morning, Jordan and Lisa. Fargo, West Fargo, and Moorhead have different sets of guidelines and also have different spring breaks. So right now I'm here at the Fargo District office because their spring break is fastly approaching, and plus they're the first one out of this list of schools. Now, Fargo's spring break goes from the 15th to the 19th. Fargo goes by Fargo Cass Public Health and North Dakota Department of Health's guidelines. At this time, there are no quarantine requirements when returning from travel, and it is recommended to get tested and monitor your health when you get back. Now, West Fargo does not do a spring break like Fargo does. Everyone is off on Friday, March 19th, but that's it. They follow North Dakota Department of Health's guidelines, and like I just mentioned, there are no quarantine requirements at this time. Now, Moorhead spring break goes from March 29th to April 2nd. Moorhead leaves it up to the family, but refers to the Minnesota Department of Health's guidelines. They discourage out-of-state travel. And if you do, they recommend a 14-day quarantine when you come back and completed COVID-19 tests within 3 to 5 days when returning. So all districts are saying if you decide to go out and travel, just be extra cautious as you come back into your own areas, letting you know that safety is their #1 concern.
Brian Sherrod reporting live. Thank you for that important update. Thank you. A man accused of lying to investigators about the 2014 death of an oilfield worker in North Dakota has pleaded guilty in federal court. Stephen Reisinger of Kalispell, Montana, was charged with obstructing an occupational safety and health administration proceeding stemming from the death of 28-year-old Dustin Payne on the job in Williston.
Payne was welding inside a tank that had not been properly cleaned and vented as required by federal law. The welding equipment ignited vapors, causing an explosion. The plea agreement says that Reisinger made false statements about his knowledge of the chemicals that were in the tank. The company previously pleaded guilty to charges related to Payne's death and was fined more than $2 million. A Fargo woman is wanted out in western North Dakota for allegedly cashing fraudulent checks from a Mandan business. Police say 31-year-old Lolita Evans cashed more than $36,000 in checks from the business between February and October of last year.
They say she also took an additional $6,800 from the business and used it to pay student loans. Officers say the fraudulent checks were deposited to a bank in Glen Ullin. Evans is charged with forgery, theft of property, and 19 counts of unauthorized use of personal identifying information. Fargo forestry crews are heading back out to neighborhoods starting today to look for evidence of Dutch elm disease in people's firewood piles. They may need access to private property to complete this process and will attempt to contact property owners.
Dutch elm disease destroyed more than 200 elm trees in Fargo last year, and city ordinance prohibits people from storing or transporting elm wood with the bark attached. To use elm as firewood, all bark must be removed. To dispose of logs containing bark, place them on the boulevard for pickup by March 29th and then notify the forestry department. Invasive zebra mussels have turned up in moss balls sold at pet stores in North Dakota. Stores have removed them, but State Game and Fish is asking anyone who bought them to stick it in the freezer overnight and then get rid of it in the trash.
The small non-native mussels quickly overpopulate bodies of water and can severely damage ecosystems. They're also very difficult to get rid of. The Bison are back home this weekend. They take on the Illinois State Redbirds on Saturday.
Our pregame show starts at 1:30. Kickoff set for 2:30. You can catch it all on your Bison network right here on KVLY.
Let's get our answer now to our question of the morning on Facebook. Today's question: kids say this is the worst thing about being in a car with parents.
The answer is, a lot of people guess this one or some form of it, their parents singing. Apparently they don't want to hear Neil Diamond's Sweet Caroline too often.
I think my kids would agree because they always say, Mom, stop singing. But I think it's not the music choice, it's just
they're embarrassed by Mom.
It's not cool for me to sing.
Yeah,
and they say I'm not a good singer, but I think I'm a pretty good singer.
I think she's pretty good too. All right, well remember you can play along every single day. Just head to our Facebook page.
The Today Show and CBS This Morning are just about to start, but remember the Valley Today rolls on. Join us right now for more live up-to-the-minute news and weather on the Fargo CW. Have a great day, everyone.